You probably remember Forrest Gump as, this really heartwarming Oscar-winning hero played by Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Just innocently eating chocolates on a park bench and, inadvertently charming his way through American history.
Right, that's the cultural touchstone for sure.
Exactly. But what if I told you the original Forrest Gump was actually a 6'6", 240-pound math savant?
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, a guy who smoked weed with Harvard students, got chased completely naked through a military parade ground, and get this, went into outer space with a terribly behaved orangutan.
I mean, it is just a staggering contrast.
Right.
The cinematic version that the whole world fell in love with is essentially, well, a beautifully manicured postcard.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But Winston Groom's original 1986 novel, like the actual source material, is this muddy, unpolished, and razor-sharp foundation that the postcard was built on. It's a completely different beast.
Well, welcome to the deep dive, because today we are tearing up that postcard.
We really are.
We are venturing into the wild, totally surreal, and often deeply cynical original text of Forrest Gump. Our mission today is to, explore the grit and the pure escalating absurdity of Groom's universe.
Which is really a relentless satire of mid-20th century America.
Exactly. But before we step out of that path, we definitely need to issue a very clear, mandatory disclaimer for you listening.
Yes. Very important.
Because this deep dive is venturing into some incredibly intense, politically charged content from the 1960s.
Right. We are going to be discussing the Vietnam War, raw anti-war protests, the counterculture movements, and, the unvarnished language and slurs that are indicative of that specific historical era.
And to be absolutely clear to you, we are not taking sides here.
Not at all.
We aren't endorsing any of the viewpoints, the politics, whether left-wing or right-wing, or the language presented in this text.
Right. We are strictly and impartially reporting on the events and themes exactly as they exist in Groom's original novel.
Yeah, our only goal is to unpack the author's satirical intent, no matter how shocking it actually gets.
And to truly understand that intent, you really have to look through the eyes of our protagonist. And, the book does not ease you in.
Not even a little bit.
No, it opens with Forrest delivering this startlingly blunt self-assessment. He plainly states that his IQ is somewhere near 70.
Right.
And he notes that this qualifies him to be categorized as a quote-unquote half-wit. But he draws a very hard line in the sand there. He insists fiercely that he is not an idiot.
And the distinction he makes there is actually pretty profound, I think.
It really is.
Because he says that when most folks think of an idiot, they picture his words, Mongolian idiots who drool and play with themselves in the corner. He acknowledges he's slow. He knows people look at him and see a fool.
Right. He's very self-aware about how society views him.
Exactly. But then he says, what goes on in my mind is a sight different than what folks see. It's like, imagine a supercomputer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like this analogy.
Like, the internal processor is top of the line.
Yeah.
It's crunching incredibly complex data, but the keyboard is completely smashed.
Wow. Yeah.
So the output, what he tries to say or write it, comes out as jello, even though the internal mechanics are completely flawless.
That processing framework is literally the engine of the entire novel. The tension between his crystal clear internal logic and his scrambled external communication is exactly what Groom uses to expose the madness of the world.
Totally.
We see this dynamic immediately when we examine his childhood in Mobile, Alabama. His mother names him after Nathan Bedford Forrest, the infamous Confederate general.
Which Forrest mentions very casually, just because his mother claimed they were kin.
Right.
But then he applies that pure, unclouded internal processor to the historical reality. He notes that General Forrest started the Ku Klux Klan after the Civil War.
Right, he runs the math on that.
Exactly. He remembers actually seeing the local Klan leader in town acting like a terrifying fool in a store window with a hangman's noose, scaring him half to death as a kid. So Forrest runs the logic. He says starting the KKK was not a good idea. Any idiot could tell you that.
See, Groom is brilliantly weaponizing Forrest's literal mind here. He uses the protagonist's straightforward deduction to just completely undercut grand, romanticized Southern mythologies.
He totally strips the reference away from the name.
Yeah, he does. And the tragedy of Forrest's childhood is delivered with that same blunt, detached logic. His father, a longshoreman, is killed on the docks. And it is not a heroic death.
Oh my gosh, no.
He is squashed flat by a massive net load of United Fruit Company bananas.
Flat as a pancake, Forrest says.
Yeah.
And then he immediately pivots to adding that he doesn't care for bananas much himself, unless they're in banana pudding.
It's just so surreal.
This real detachment is almost jarring. But if we dig into the why of this scene, I mean, why bananas? Why the United Fruit Company specifically?
That's a great question.
It feels like Groom is already taking a swing at corporate America, right?
Yeah.
Setting up this idea that normal working-class people are just expendable cogs in a massive, uncaring machine.
Oh, absolutely. That theme of institutional exploitation starts at birth and literally never lets up. Following the father's death, Forrest's mother becomes fiercely protective.
Understandably so.
Right. She keeps him isolated in their dark parlor, serving him limeades, just trying to shield him from a world that doesn't understand him.
Yeah.
Eventually, the public school system rejects him entirely, and she is forced to send him to what Forrest bluntly calls the nut school.
Which the curriculum at this place is incredibly bleak. It seems entirely designed just to keep these kids out of society's way.
It's purely containment.
Yeah. He learns to tie his shoes, he learns to read basic street signs, and he learns to navigate around other severely afflicted children, like hiding in a bathroom stall to avoid a boy who shakes uncontrollably. It's a containment system, not an educational one.
But then, biology forces a disruption. By age 16, Forrest undergoes a massive physical transformation. He shoots up a 6'6" and packs on 242 pounds of muscle.
He's a giant.
Yeah, and the moment he attains the physical dimensions of a defensive lineman, the very same normal society that banished him suddenly comes knocking.
I love how Forrest describes this part. Coach Fellers pulls up to the school, flanked by two guys Forrest literally refers to as goons.
Just goons.
Yeah. They pull him out of this containment facility, rush him into the principal's office, and suit him up for high school football. The hypocrisy is just staggering.
It really is.
The school system deemed his mind unfit for their halls, but they are more than happy to utilize his body.
The irony, of course, is that Forrest possesses zero inherent aggression. Like, they put him in pads, and he ends up tackling an oak tree for practice.
Oak tree.
Right. And when it comes to the actual game, he refuses to jump on the opposing players because he simply doesn't want to hurt anyone. He doesn't understand the manufactured hostility of the sport at all.
Right, until survival instinct kicks in. There's a group of bullies at the school who torment him, pouring milk on his head and calling him Dumbo.
So cruel.
One day during practice, these bullies start chasing him across the field. Coach Fellers just watches Forrest running for his life and effortlessly outrunning every single person on the gridiron.
It's this massive light bulb moment for the coaching staff.
Totally. They realize they have the fastest human being alive, provided he is adequately terrified.
Which is such a dark caveat. So they scrap traditional strategy entirely. They design a specific play where they just hand Forrest the ball and explicitly tell him to run for the sidelines while the entire defense chases him.
It's so primitive.
Yeah.
But it works flawlessly, and it rockets him out of Mobile and straight into the University of Alabama to play under the legendary Bear Bryant.
And here is where Groom's critique of Southern institutions really sharpens its teeth. The university environment for these players is abhorrent.
It sounds awful.
Forrest is housed in the Ape Dorm, which is described as this filthy, destroyed brick building where the athletes live in absolute squalor.
Yeah, they're ripping doors off hinges, throwing toilets out of windows. His own roommate, Curtis, is violently unstable. The university administration turns a completely blind eye to the humanity and the living conditions of these young men. They are not students, They are just raw material to be fed into the college football machine.
But the machine has rules, right? To keep him eligible for the field, they have to pretend he's a student. So he's enrolled in a physical education class, a remedial English class, and thanks to a sympathetic professor who recognizes something unusual in him, a graduate-level physics class called Intermediate Light.
Okay, and this is where the concept of the idiot savant takes center stage.
It really does.
Forrest, a young man who struggles to lace his own shoes, sits down with an advanced physics textbook that looks to him like it's written in Chinese.
Right.
Yet, the complex equations governing the behavior of light just make perfect, intuitive sense to his processor. He scores an A in the class.
It's incredible.
Yeah, Dr. Mills at the University Medical Center tests him and confirms he possesses the mental capacity of a child, but harbors these rare, profound pockets of brilliance in advanced mathematics and spatial logic.
So we have an administration that has just discovered a profound neurological anomaly. A young man who can effortlessly solve graduate-level quantum wave equations. Do they celebrate this academic miracle? Do they try to nurture his mind?
I'm going to guess no.
Not even slightly. Bear Bryant hauls Forrest into his office and is genuinely furious.
Of course he is.
He demands to know how Forrest managed to flunk phys ed but get an A in intermediate light. The intellectual discovery is just an annoyance because it complicates his football eligibility. The only thing the university values is their secret weapon play, which involves Forrest running out 20 yards, turning around, and catching the ball.
It really makes you pause and consider the title of Quackenbush's lecture later in the book, The Role of the Idiot.
Yes, exactly.
Like, is Forrest actually the fool here, or is Groom using him as a mirror to reflect the sheer aggressive stupidity of the normal people running these esteemed institutions?
I lean heavily toward the mirror theory. Forrest operates entirely on basic human necessity and unfiltered truth, which just completely short-circuits the rigid artificial rules of normal society. We see this perfectly encapsulated at the Allstate banquet.
Oh, the banquet scene is incredible.
So good.
Forrest is sitting on the dais. Everyone around him is delivering these long, bloated, self-important speeches. He gets his trophy, politely says thank you, and the crowd gives him an ovation.
Standard protocol so far.
Right. The MC, trying to milk the moment, asks if the big hero has anything else to say to the adoring audience.
Oh.
Now, Forrest has been suffering for hours. His zipper is stuck, and the coach wouldn't let him go to the bathroom.
So relatable, honestly.
So, standing before the microphone, he states the only truth that matters in that moment. I gotta pee.
And the crowd is paralyzed with shock. He's the only person in the room acting in accordance with genuine, unpretentious reality, yet society labels him the idiot because he violated a meaningless rule of decorum. Groom uses Forrest's bodily functions throughout the novel as this grounding mechanism, a reminder of raw human vulnerability crashing into polite society.
See that clash again with his sexual awakening, actually. There's a boarder at his mother's house, Miss French. During a thunderstorm, she offers him divinity candy and initiates his first sexual experience, gently telling him to just keep his eyes closed.
And for Forrest, this is a total revelation. His internal processor registers this new physical reality, and he immediately wants to share this profound experience with Jenny Curran.
Right, the one girl from his childhood who treated him with genuine kindness.
Yes. But his attempt to connect with Jenny really highlights his inability to process social context. His mother arranges a date for them to see the movie Bonnie and Clyde.
Which is a violent movie.
Very. But Forrest doesn't grasp the concept of cinematic violence. He watches people getting shot on screen, and to him, the chaotic physical movements look absurd. He thinks it's a comedy. He laughs uproariously.
Oh no, and Jenny is mortified.
Completely. She shrinks down in her theater seat, just trying to hide. But Forrest's literal mind misinterprets her embarrassment. He thinks she is physically falling out of her chair.
So he tries to help.
Right. He reaches over to pull her up, grabs her dress, and accidentally rips the entire garment open in the middle of a crowded theater.
It's a total catastrophe.
Ooh.
The police are called, and Forrest is thrown in a jail cell. When he goes before the judge and is asked if he has anything to add in his defense, his response is exactly the same as at the banquet. I gotta pee.
The judge is baffled.
Yeah, and gives him an ultimatum. Either go to the army or let the university take him back for football.
The football program acts as a temporary shield. But that shield is incredibly fragile because it relies entirely on the competence of the normal people around him.
Which is always a risk.
Right. During the Orange Bowl against Nebraska, the national championship is on the line. It's 4th down. The quarterback, Snake a guy society deems highly capable, panics. He forgets what down it is and intentionally throws the ball out of bounds to stop the clock.
Turning the ball over on downs and losing the biggest game of the year. It's a single catastrophic mistake by a quote-unquote normal person. But Forrest pays the price.
Yep.
With the season over and a failing grade in remedial English, his utility to the university drops to 0. He flunks out.
So the academic machine spits him out the second his physical utility expires. But nature abhors a vacuum, especially in the late 1960s. The military machine is waiting right there to swallow him up.
He actually almost avoided the draft earlier.
Oh, that's right.
He had taken the medical test previously, and a doctor told him to bend over, abruptly jamming a finger up his rear. Forrest, reacting with pure, terrified instinct, knocked the doctor out cold.
Naturally.
They gave him a temporary deferment, labeling him a numbnuts. But now, without Bear Bryant's protection, the Army doesn't care about his mental state. They pack him up and send him straight to Fort Benning.
And here, Groom shifts his satirical crosshairs. He moves from the hypocrisy of Southern academia to the sheer, incomprehensible bureaucracy of the military command structure.
It's so absurd.
Forrest makes a very astute observation early on. He notes that the sergeants yell louder and nastier than any football coach, but they don't seem interested in strategy or intellect. They are bizarrely obsessed with the soldiers' private parts and their bowel movements.
It's so true. I mean, if you're listening and you've ever worked in a massive corporate bureaucracy, you know the feeling where the rules seem entirely disconnected from the goal.
Yes.
The military in this novel is exactly like that. It's like a giant, massive, unsteerable ocean liner. It's packed full of thousands of people in identical uniforms, screaming at the top of their lungs, but absolutely nobody on board actually knows where the ship is going or how the engine works.
There is no better symbol for that unsteerable ship than the KP duty incident. It is a masterpiece of escalating bureaucratic comedy.
Oh, this part is wild. Forrest accidentally shoots a hole in the base's water tower, so for punishment, he's put on cooking duty. The mess hall tells him he needs to cook stew for 200 men.
A huge task.
Right. Forrest, logically, asks what he's supposed to cook it in. The other soldiers point to a massive industrial iron steam boiler sitting in the corner, but they add a warning. You can't cook nothing in there.
And when Forrest asks why, the response is the anthem of every broken bureaucracy. Well, I don't know. I just wouldn't do it if I was you.
Nobody knows why.
Right. No one knows why the rule exists. They just blindly follow it.
But Forrest's literal processor analyzes the situation. He thinks it's hot. It's got water in it. It perfectly fits the parameters of a cooking pot.
It makes sense to him.
So he hauls hundreds of pounds of potatoes, meat, canned vegetables, ketchup, and mustard, and dumps it all directly into the high-pressure steam boiler.
And then the men return from training exercises ravenous. They are banging their silverware on the tables, demanding food. The stew isn't heating fast enough for the mob, so Forrest simply turns the pressure valve on the boiler higher.
Oh, no.
And higher.
Sergeant Krantz kicks the doors open, screaming at Forrest to serve the food immediately. Yeah. And at that exact moment, the laws of physics reassert themselves.
The boiler detonates.
It's an apocalyptic explosion. The blast physically blows the roof off the mess hall. It launches the dishwasher, the man, not the machine, straight through a brick wall.
Wow.
Miraculously, Forrest and Sergeant Krantz survive the blast, but the explosion completely vaporizes their clothing and covers them head to toe in boiling hot, sticky stew.
And Krantz completely snaps. He grabs a massive meat cleaver, screaming disjointed words, Gump, boiler, stew, and chases a naked Forrest across the base's pristine parade grounds in front of everyone. It is pure, chaotic slapstick.
It really is.
But Groom is incredibly manipulative with his tone here. He lulls the reader into this comfortable, farcical comedy, only to violently rip the rug out when Forrest's unit is deployed to Vietnam. Specifically, they are sent to Pleiku in the Central Highlands.
The whiplash is intense. They arrive during the Tet Truce. Forrest looks around and thinks it's not so bad. It's clean and quiet, vaguely reminding him of Fort Benning.
A false sense of security.
Yeah. They are sent down to what the Army calls the brigade showers, which is literally just a muddy pit where soldiers stand while trucks spray them down with fire hoses.
So they are standing in this pit, completely naked, covered in soap, utterly vulnerable, and that is the exact moment the truce breaks. The reality of the war crashes down on them in an instant.
Mortar shells start raining out of the sky. The men holding the water hoses are instantly blown apart.
It's horrific.
Forrest is paralyzed. He explicitly notes that he had never seen a dead body before, and suddenly he is surrounded by men who are mangled, looking like they've been pushed through a cotton baler. They spend that entire night pinned down in shallow foxholes filled with slimy water, venomous snakes, and biting bugs.
The transition from the comedic nakedness of the boiler explosion to the horrific life-or-death nakedness in the shower pit is just a gut punch.
It forces the reader to experience the terrifying disorientation of the grunts on the ground. The bureaucracy that provided the slapstick comedy is the exact same bureaucracy that placed them in this meat grinder.
Exactly. And this thematic escalation culminates in the deepest emotional wound of the novel, the death of Bubba.
It's a sequence that really stays with you. Their company is sent deep into the jungle to relieve a pinned-down unit. It rains incessantly for 2 straight months.
Just miserable conditions.
They are crossing a flooded rice paddy when a massive ambush erupts. Forrest, relying on his sheer speed, sprints to the safety of the tree line. He looks around, realizes Bubba didn't make it out, and without a second thought, runs back into the crossfire.
His loyalty just overrides his fear. He accidentally carries 2 other dying soldiers out of the muck before he finally locates Bubba.
But he's too late.
Yeah.
Bubba's been shot twice through the chest. The visual Groom paints here is haunting. The relentless rain finally stops, and the sky turns this sickly, deathly pinkish color.
Such a striking image.
Bubba is bleeding out, and he makes one final request. He asks Forrest to play a song on the harmonica, the same harmonica Bubba taught him to play back at the university. Forrest pulls it out and plays way down upon the Swanee River. Bubba looks up, whispers a single word to the metacomb, and dies.
It is the emotional anchor of the entire narrative. Bubba represented Forrest's one anchor to a hopeful future. They had this naive, beautiful plan to pool their money and buy a shrimp boat in the Gulf.
Yeah.
With one word, the uncaring machinery of the war shatters that dream. In the chaos of the retreat, Forrest takes a bullet to the rear end and is evacuated to a military hospital in Da Nang.
He sinks into a deep, crushing depression. The logic of his internal processor is completely failing him. Why did Bubba die? Why are they in this jungle? None of the math adds up.
Right.
But it is in this hospital ward that he encounters a character who completely reconstructs his cognitive framework. Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan is a profound figure in the text. He was a history teacher from Connecticut, drafted out of his classroom, handed a commission, and subsequently maimed when his tank was hit.
Right.
He is covered in severe burns, he's missing limbs, he is hooked up to a terrifying array of medical tubes. Yet, he is the most lucid, calm voice Forrest has ever heard. He introduces Forrest to the realm of philosophy.
Specifically, he teaches Forrest about the philosophy of natural laws.
Right.
Which I struggle a bit here, honestly, to see how this comforts Forrest.
Oh, really? How so?
Dan uses this brutal metaphor. He tells Forrest to imagine a jungle where a tiger suddenly leaps out and devours a monkey. He says, look, this event is obviously terrible for the monkey, but it's great for the tiger.
Right.
It's not evil. It's not malicious. It is simply the indifferent law of the jungle at work.
Well, it comforts Forrest because it removes the burden of finding moral logic in an immoral system. His savant brain needs an equation. Dan provides one.
I guess that makes sense.
The universe is governed by mechanical laws that don't care about fairness or human suffering. Once Forrest understands that Bubba's death wasn't a punishment, but rather the grim mechanical reality of the tiger pouncing, he can categorize the chaos.
He explicitly says that after hearing this, things get a good bit clearer for him. He starts to find a semblance of peace. He starts playing ping pong in the hospital rec room, discovering that his hyper-focused reflexes make him completely unbeatable.
Yeah, he finds a new outlet.
But the real turning point happens when he wanders down to the Da Nang waterfront and meets a local man named Mr. Chi.
Mr. Chi is a shrimp farmer, and this encounter is a masterclass in narrative setup. Forrest is still quietly mourning the loss of the shrimp boat dream.
Right.
But he observes Mr. Chi, who has constructed these simple wire nets inside a shallow saltwater pond. Mr. Chi catches baby shrimp, throws in organic scraps when the tide comes in, and grows them massive without ever leaving the shore.
Forrest's processor just lights up. He has a massive epiphany. He realizes he doesn't need a boat at all. He can go back home to the Gulf Coast, find a coastal pond, and raise shrimp in wire nets.
The dream he built with Bubba survives, just heavily adapted to a new reality.
So you'd think finding a philosophical grounding and a tangible future goal would center him, allowing him to quietly exit the narrative.
You would think.
But society is nowhere near done extracting value from Forrest. Just as he finds internal peace, the military bureaucracy reaches down, grabs him by the collar, declares him a national hero, and thrusts him into the dizzying, absurd heights of global politics.
He is awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions in the rice paddy. The military pairs him with a careerist handler named Colonel Gooch, who is desperate to ride Forrest's coattails, and they fly back to the United States.
Groom uses this return to explore the weaponization of the hero concept. They land in San Francisco, with Gooch expecting a massive brass band and a ticker tape parade.
Right, the hero's welcome.
Instead, they walk out of the terminal and into the teeth of a massive, furious anti-war protest.
It's a nightmare scenario for Gooch. People are screaming, a protester launches a tomato that hits Gooch squarely in the face, and thousands of angry demonstrators literally chase Forrest across the airport tarmac.
It's terrifying.
The man who just won the nation's highest military honor has to lock himself inside a public toilet stall for an hour just to survive his homecoming.
It's a total inversion of the heroic ideal. The public doesn't see a hero. They see a symbol of a deeply unpopular war. But The absurdity reaches its absolute peak when Forrest arrives in Washington, D.C. to receive his medal from President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
Groom strips away every ounce of majesty from the presidency in this scene.
He really does. You picture the Rose Garden, right? Dignitaries, solemn music, the weight of history. LBJ steps up to pin the medal on Forrest's chest. But Forrest hasn't eaten all day. His stomach lets out a growl so loud it echoes across the lawn.
LBJ hears it, pauses the ceremony, and casually says, "Come on, boy, let's go get us something to eat."
He treats a Medal of Honor recipient like a stray dog he just found. They go inside the White House, eat a massive breakfast, and sit down to watch television.
TV with the president.
Yeah, LBJ proudly admits he watches the Beverly Hillbillies every single day and tells Forrest he reminds him of the character Jethro.
But wait, it gets even better. They go back outside to face the press. LBJ, trying to manufacture a moment of masculine solidarity for the cameras, asks Forrest where he was wounded in Vietnam.
Right.
The president pulls up his own shirt to show Forrest a surgical scar on his stomach. Forrest, applying his literal interpretation of the interaction, unbuckles his belt and drops his pants to show the President of the United States the bullet wound on his rear end.
Right in front of the White House press corps. The next morning, Colonel Gooch is trembling as he holds up a newspaper. The headline reads, "President Johnson and War Hero Relaxing in the Rose Garden," accompanied by a massive front-page photo of LBJ's scarred stomach alongside Forrest's bare backside, complete with a tiny black sensor bar placed over Forrest's eyes.
That is hilarious.
Gooch is having a total meltdown, and Forrest simply looks at him and says, "I am trying to do the right thing."
That phrase is Forrest's ultimate defense mechanism. He's constantly trying to follow the rules of the systems he's placed in, but because his interpretation is purely literal, he continually exposes how ridiculous those rules actually are. Exactly. The Army, completely missing the point, decides to use him for a national recruitment tour. Gooch writes this flowery, deeply patriotic speech about duty and honor.
But Forrest's Jello output mechanism cannot memorize political rhetoric. He keeps stumbling over the words, so Gooch furiously strips the speech down to a single, easily digestible line. "Join the Army and fight for your freedom."
They put him on stage at a crowded college auditorium. Forrest steps up to the mic and delivers the line perfectly. But then a student in the back of the crowd shouts out, "What do you think of the war?"
And Forrest's processor entirely bypasses the military propaganda.
Yeah.
He accesses his actual memories of play coup, the brigade showers, and Bubba dying in the mud. He leans into the microphone and says, "It is a bunch of shit."
The auditorium erupts. The crowd goes wild. The press scrambles to the payphones, and Gooch nearly has a stroke. The recruitment tour is instantly canceled.
They realize they can't control him.
Right. The military realizes they cannot control his output, so they punish him.
Oh.
Gooch gets reassigned to a frozen outpost in Iceland, and Forrest is dumped at Fort Dix with orders to shovel coal in a boiler room.
It's incredible. He tells the one objective truth he knows, and the system buries him for it. But he doesn't stay buried for long because his ping pong skills eventually pull him right back into the geopolitical spotlight.
Thank goodness for ping pong.
He enters an Army tournament, dominates the competition, and wins his way to the finals held at Walter Reed Medical Center.
Which sets up a deeply poignant reunion. Forrest walks into the hospital and finds Lieutenant Dan, but Dan is in horrific shape.
Yeah, his physical deterioration is severe.
His legs have been amputated, he is heavily scarred from the burns, and he is confined to a wheelchair with medical tubing permanently attached to his body.
Yet Dan's spirit is unbroken. He's the one who pumps Forrest up for the championship match, telling him that it is his destiny to win. Forrest channels that energy, crushes his opponent, and is immediately approached by a high-ranking Pentagon official adorned in medals. The official informs Forrest that he has been selected for the United States ping pong team. They are sending him to Red China, and the official gravely states that the very future of the human race might depend on his performance.
Thus begins Forrest's role in ping pong diplomacy. And Groom uses this sequence to meticulously dismantle the polished veneer of Cold War statecraft.
Completely.
The State Department assigns a handler to Forrest, a man named Mr. Wilkins. Wilkins is a fastidious, deeply uptight career diplomat who constantly reprimands Forrest for adjusting his underwear in public and complains about his lack of etiquette at the dinner table.
Wilkins represents the highly educated, perfectly manicured face of international diplomacy, the postcard version of politics, which makes the ensuing chaos so incredibly satisfying.
It really does.
Forrest wanders out of the hotel because he's hungry and wants to find a Peking duck restaurant. He gets hopelessly lost. He tries communicating with a Chinese cab driver by literally flapping his arms like a duck and quacking. The driver assumes he's a lunatic, drops him off at the airport, and Forrest wanders the streets of Peking for hours until he is arrested by the local police, who suspect him of being an American spy.
Wilkins must have been losing his mind.
Wilkins is apoplectic when he finally retrieves him, going so far as to pin a handwritten note to Forrest's lapel and tie a large red balloon to his shirt collar so he won't lose sight of him again.
But here is the brilliant twist. Wilkins, with all his Ivy League training and protocol, is entirely useless when an actual crisis occurs.
Totally useless.
The American delegation is taken down to a wide, murky river to observe Chairman Mao, who is 80 years old, take a ceremonial swim. Mao wades into the water, turns, waves to the adoring crowd twice, and then slips under the surface for a third time.
The crowd is roaring with applause, assuming it's part of the display. But Forrest's keen spatial processor analyzes the movement and realizes immediately that Mao isn't swimming, he is actively drowning.
Total panic ensues. It's a literal Chinese fire drill, exactly as Forrest describes it. The highly trained diplomats, the security forces, the handlers, everyone is completely paralyzed by protocol.
Right, no one wants to step out of line.
No one knows whose jurisdiction it is to save the communist leader. So Forrest bypasses the bureaucracy. He kicks off his shoes, dives headfirst into the filthy river, swims down into the murk, blindly bumps into Mao underwater, hauls him to the surface, and saves his life.
The Chinese pull Mao into a rescue boat and speed off, completely leaving Forrest behind to swim back to shore alone. And when he gets back, what is Wilkins' reaction? Is he grateful?
I highly doubt it.
No, Wilkins is screaming with rage. He tells Forrest that he just cost the United States government the geopolitical opportunity of a lifetime by refusing to let the communist leader drown.
But Wilkins' cold Machiavellian calculation is entirely wrong. Because Forrest acted on pure human instinct and saved a life, the Chinese government is overjoyed.
Yeah, they love it.
They throw Forrest a massive ticker-tape parade through the streets of Peking. He is invited to a private banquet and seated right next to Chairman Mao himself. And this is where Groom's satire bites the absolute hardest.
Oh, this is the best part. Mao leans over and, through a translator, asks Forrest the exact same question the college student asked back in the States. What does he think of the war in Vietnam?
Oh, wow.
Forrest pauses, accesses his memory, and delivers the exact same unvarnished answer that got him canceled in America. I think it's a bunch of shit.
And Mao's reaction is legendary. His eyes light up, he breaks into a massive, genuine smile, and he shakes Forrest's hand vigorously.
He loves the honesty.
Forrest's blunt, unfiltered truth bridges the massive ideological divide better than any sophisticated statecraft ever could. Forrest, acting purely as himself, succeeds where the entire State Department failed.
He even manages a moment of pure grassroots diplomacy. During a tour, he spots a little Mongolian boy in the crowd who appears to have a cognitive condition. Forrest casually walks over and hands the boy a ping pong ball, causing the child to smile for the very first time in his life.
Though, true to form, the media entirely misinterprets the reality.
Of course they do.
The boy gets excited and throws the ball at Forrest's head just as a photographer snaps a picture, resulting in a global headline that reads, "Young Chinese displays his hatred of American capitalists."
It highlights how the institutions of information, the press, are just as fundamentally flawed as the military or academia, but Forrest secures his own victory on the long flight back to the United States.
The airplane fart. I know it sounds juvenile, but in the context of the novel, it is the perfect dismantling of authority.
It really is.
Wilkins is sitting next to Forrest, being incredibly smug. He patronizingly reminds Forrest of an ancient Chinese custom stating that if you save a man's life, you are responsible for him forever. He's rubbing Forrest's face in the fact that he's tied to Mao's legacy.
Just being terrible.
The fasten seatbelt sign is illuminated. So Forrest looks Wilkins dead in the eye, shifts his weight, and lets out a massive bodily eruption that he describes as sounding like a buzzsaw ripping through wood.
The sheer vulgarity of the act shatters Wilkins' pompous composure. He is choking, gagging, desperately fumbling with his seatbelt to escape.
When the stewardess rushes over to investigate the commotion, Forrest pinches his nose, points an accusatory finger at Wilkins, and loudly demands that someone open a window. The stewardess takes one look at Wilkins' red face, smiles knowingly, and walks away.
It's the ultimate triumph of raw, undeniable physical reality over elite intellectual pretension. Wilkins is left gasping for air, totally defeated. But upon returning to U.S. soil, Forrest is quietly discharged. The Army is finally done with him.
He's a celebrated international hero, but he realizes he holds no actual place in the military or political spheres.
He is a man without an institution. He faces a crossroads. He could return to Mobile, but his mother has been forced into the poorhouse after a careless boarder accidentally burned their family home to the ground.
That's tragic.
Yeah, he could head to the Gulf and start the shrimp business with Mr. Cheese Net method.
But he doesn't do either. He's conquered academia, the military, and global diplomacy, and found them all completely empty. So he turns to the one thing that feels real to him. He buys a train ticket to Boston to track down Jenny Curran.
This initiates a fascinating new chapter. Forrest's collision with the 1960s counterculture. He manages to locate Jenny at a dark, sticky-floored underground club in Boston called the Ho Daddy Club, and she has undergone a radical transformation.
She is completely unrecognizable from the girl in Alabama. She has hair down to her waist, she's wearing dark sunglasses indoors at midnight, and she is the lead singer for an incredibly loud avant-garde psychedelic rock band called the Cracked Eggs.
Forrest's arrival is met with immediate hostility. He walks into this den of rebellion wearing his crisp, decorated army uniform.
Talk about sticking out.
He is the physical embodiment of the establishment. The counterculture kids mock him, and he is essentially pushed out the back door. He sits in the alleyway by the dumpsters, pulls out his harmonica, and starts playing to pass the time.
And his savant musical abilities take over. He begins playing, and his ear is so precise that he perfectly matches the complex, chaotic chord progressions. The Cracked Eggs are playing inside the club.
Jenny hears the harmonica bleeding through the walls, rushes out into the alley, and they are finally reunited.
This reunion thrusts Forrest headfirst into the chaotic heart of the late 60s countercultural movement. Jenny has survived a brutal few years. She's navigated peace marches, radical bomb makers, predatory married professors, and petty shoplifting rings.
It's been rough for her.
She is currently dating a man named Rudolph, whose entire personality consists of sitting motionless on the floor, meditating like a guru, and refusing to speak.
Forrest moves into their cramped apartment, sleeping on a thin pallet on the floor. Jenny immediately works to assimilate him. She buys him new clothes, heavy overalls, and a thick lumber jacket so his outward appearance aligns with the aesthetic of the movement.
He joins the band on stage, his harmonica elevating their sound, and they become a massive underground sensation, eventually securing a lucrative record deal with an executive from New York.
On the surface, it appears idyllic. Forrest has found his tribe. But Groom uses this segment to subject the counterculture to the exact same critical scrutiny he applied to the military and the university. He refuses to let the hippies off the hook.
Interesting.
And he signals this critical pivot through one of the most brilliant metafictional scenes in the novel.
Oh, you're talking about the Harvard class. This blew my mind. Forrest is invited to sit in on a lecture at Harvard University. The course is taught by Jenny's former lover, a pompous academic named Professor Quackenbush.
Yes, Quackenbush.
And the title of the course is The Role of the Idiot in World Literature.
It is an incredibly bold move by Winston Groom. He literally pauses the forward momentum of the narrative to explain the exact mechanical function of the book you are currently reading.
Yes. Quackenbush stands before the students and lectures that the idiot character in literature, whether it's a village fool or a Shakespearean court jester, is fundamentally a device of double entendre.
He explains that the author allows the fool to act foolishly, not for cheap laughs, but to provide the reader with a stark revelation of the greater, much more dangerous foolishness of the normal characters surrounding him.
It is Groom winking directly at the audience. He is handing you the cipher to decode Forrest Gump. Forrest is not the butt of the joke. He is the lens through which we view the absurdity of American institutions.
And Groom punctuates this literary lesson with a literal bonfire. Quackenbush decides to stage a bizarre avant-garde performance of Shakespeare's King Lear, casting Forrest as the Earl of Gloucester.
This sounds like a recipe for disaster.
They are performing this play inside a makeshift hovel constructed entirely out of heavy blankets, using a desk fan and a handful of clothespins as a wind machine.
Forrest enters the scene carrying a real, heavily soaked, lit torch. But because he is 6'6", the flame brushes against the low blanket ceiling.
The actor playing Mad Tom panics and screams at Forrest, calling him a stupid idiot.
Forrest, armed with his newly defined literary purpose, snaps back. For once in my life, I am not the idiot you is.
And then the entire set erupts into flames. The makeshift wind machine fans the fire, spreading it rapidly. Forrest's costume, which is just a dining room tablecloth he's wearing like a Superman cape, catches fire.
Oh my goodness.
He grabs the actress playing the fool, leaps out of a second-story window, and crashes into the decorative shrubs below. He sprints across the pristine Harvard yard with his cape blazing and a massive trail of black smoke billowing behind him, while Quackenbush hangs out the window screaming curses.
He literally burns the ivory tower of the literary establishment to the ground. Following this chaos, the band goes on tour, and Forrest and Jenny enter this deeply intimate, blissful, romantic period. They record their album, they buy a customized tour bus, and life seems perfect.
But then Forrest asks himself a crucial question. Why does his blunt, unfiltered honesty, which saved his life in the jungle and charmed the leader of communist China, completely fail him when he tries to navigate the counterculture and sustain his relationship with Jenny?
It fails because he adopts the counterculture's specific brand of escapism. Mose, the drummer for the band, introduces Forrest to marijuana. Mose promises that smoking joints will expand his mental horizons.
And initially, Forrest's savant brain loves it. He feels like he can hear every single note of music 100 times over, dissecting the sound waves in his mind.
But the long-term reality quickly sets in. The drug makes him deeply, profoundly apathetic. He starts waking up, lighting a joint immediately, and lying motionless on the floor all day.
If you're listening right now, think about a time you found a coping mechanism to deal with the overwhelming stress of the world, scrolling on your phone, binge-watching TV, whatever it is. You use it to tune out the noise.
Right.
But suddenly, that exact mechanism becomes the very thing holding you back. Jenny sees this happening to Forrest and warns him. She tells him it's destroying his drive.
But Forrest refuses to stop because the weed effectively silences the complex, confusing output demands of his broken keyboard. It removes his anxieties. However, this chemical apathy destroys his life.
It does.
Backstage at a gig in Provincetown, while Forrest is in a drug-induced haze, two aggressive groupies throw themselves at him. Jenny walks into the dressing room, witnesses the scene, immediately assumes the worst, and her heart breaks.
She calls him a shithead who possesses no respect for anyone, and she completely severs the relationship. She kicks him out of the band and out of her life.
His altered state clouded the very simplicity and fierce loyalty that made him who he was. Jenny disappears, heading south to join the escalating anti-war movement in Washington, D.C. Forrest, spiraling into a deep depression, follows her trail to the Capitol.
He arrives to find the city in a state of absolute chaos. It is essentially an active riot zone. When he finally locates Jenny, she has just been released from jail, and the authorities have forcibly shaved her head bald, claiming she might have lice.
It is a stark, brutal image of institutional control. She is hiding in the backseat of a parked car, deeply traumatized.
Forrest crawls into the car on his hands and knees, offers a profound apology, promises to never smoke dope again, and gently places his old olive-drab army watch cap on her head to cover her baldness. She forgives him.
And this vulnerable reunion leads directly to the massive protest at the U.S. Capitol building. The protest is designed to be a profound theatrical statement against the Vietnam War. Veterans from across the country are gathering to publicly hurl their combat medals onto the Capitol steps.
Jenny asks Forrest to put his dress uniform back on, wraps him in heavy iron chains for visual effect, and leads him into the crowd.
The organizers discover that Forrest is a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, and they immediately co-opt him. They don't care about his trauma. They treat him like a massive public relations prop for their cause.
They push him to the front of the barricades to throw his medal. Forrest thinks of Bubba dying in the mud. He thinks of Lieutenant Dan missing his legs, and he genuinely wants to make a powerful statement.
But he is still Forrest. He operates on extreme physical spectrums. He doesn't just toss the medal. He rears back and heaves the heavy bronze medal with every ounce of his 240-pound frame.
Oh, no.
He throws it with such terrifying velocity that it sails completely over the steps, over the massive stone pillars, and scores a direct hit on the clerk of the U.S. Senate, striking him right between the eyes and knocking him out cold on the marble floor.
Complete pandemonium erupts. Tear gas canisters explode in the crowd, the riot police charge the barricades swinging billy clubs, and Forrest is tackled and arrested. Yet again.
But this time, the judicial system doesn't offer him a football scholarship or a military draft. The judge charges him with assault with a dangerous weapon, the weapon being the Medal of Honor.
The irony is rich.
But during the hearing, the judge is so utterly baffled by Forrest's demeanor and his explanation of the events that he refuses to send him to a traditional penitentiary. Instead, he commits Forrest for a mandatory 30-day psychiatric observation. Forrest is officially deemed medically insane and locked inside St. Elizabeth's mental hospital.
So now, our protagonist is legally insane and trapped in an asylum. He meets an array of deeply disturbed individuals, including an axe murderer named Fred, who cheerfully informs Forrest he is scheduled for release in a week.
Reassuring.
Right. Forrest is subjected to a grueling battery of psychological tests by a psychiatrist named Dr. Walton, who forces him to strip completely naked during his interviews.
But this is where Groom takes the narrative, snaps the steering wheel, and drives the entire novel off a cliff into the realm of absolute science fiction.
Yes, here we go.
Two government scientists, Dr. Duke and Dr. Earl, arrive from the National Institute of Mental Health to review Forrest's files. They look at his advanced math scores, and they realize that his brain operates with the flawless precision of a supercomputer.
And in the deeply cynical universe of Winston Groom's satire, a diagnosed idiot facing a decade in prison is exactly the candidate the United States government requires for its most complex endeavor.
They shackle Forrest in chains, load him onto a plane, and fly him to NASA headquarters in Houston.
They inform him that they want to program his savant mind with coaxial coordinates, spherical trigonometry, and advanced matrix mathematics. They want him to serve as a biological backup computer for an impending spaceflight.
It is the ultimate satirical escalation. Groom pushes the boundaries of believability to their absolute breaking point.
He really does.
But let me push back on Groom here for a second. Is he going too far? I mean, we started this journey with a deeply touching, gritty scene of Bubba whispering his dying words in a muddy rice paddy in Vietnam. Now we have Forrest being drafted by NASA to fly a spaceship. Does the emotional core of the novel actually survive this sci-fi pivot?
It's a very valid critique, and it certainly feels jarring to the reader. But Groom is making a structural point that requires this extreme escalation. He is arguing that whether it is the Ivy League, the United States military, the State Department, or the absolute highest echelon of aerospace science, every single system in American society is fundamentally ridiculous, desperate, and exploitative.
Because they aren't sending him to space out of noble scientific curiosity.
Exactly. They are coercing him. They explicitly threaten him with 10 years in a federal penitentiary if he refuses the mission. NASA isn't exploring the stars. They are desperately using a highly vulnerable man to avoid a public relations disaster if their mechanical computers fail.
And the sheer incompetence of this supposedly elite organization becomes glaringly obvious on the morning of the launch. The crew for this mission consists of 3 members. Major Janet Fritsch, who is a highly irritable, deeply serious female astronaut, Forrest, and a female orangutan named Sue, who has been trained to pull levers.
But as they are strapping into the capsule, there's a massive bureaucratic mix-up. Ground control accidentally loads a male orangutan into the ship.
Major Fritsch takes one look at the ape, realizes the catastrophic error, and frantically radios ground control, demanding they abort the launch sequence.
And the response from the brilliant minds at NASA, the ground controller basically sighs and says, "That's your problem, sister. We have a strict schedule to meet. Just pretend he's a female." One ape is just like any other, the controller insists. It is the exact same terrifying bureaucratic indifference that told Forrest to cook stew in a high-pressure steam boiler, just scaled up to a multi-million-dollar space program. They ignite the engines and launch them into the stratosphere anyway.
And chaos ensues the very second they hit zero gravity. The ape, whom they are still calling Sue, is miserable and terrified. He mashes a ripe banana in his massive fists and flings it violently around the pristine cabin.
Forrest is forced to pull out his harmonica and play the theme song to I Dream of Jeannie over and over again just to keep the ape from tearing the ship apart.
But the true disaster strikes when Sue's biological needs arise. He needs to urinate. Forrest carefully guides him behind a privacy partition with a glass collection jar. But Sue panics and shatters the jar in his hands.
Because they are in zero gravity, a massive floating glob of orangutan urine drifts across the cabin and hits Major Fritsch squarely in the face.
Disgusting.
She screams in horror. Sue the ape completely loses his mind, goes berserk, and starts violently ripping the vital control wires out of the ship's navigational panels.
The spacecraft instantly loses stabilization. It begins spinning wildly out of control. Ground control frantically radios Forrest, ordering him to manually calculate and insert a mathematical program to crash land them safely in the Indian Ocean.
But Forrest checks the coordinates and realizes they have already blown past the target.
They are hurtling toward the Earth's surface at 10,000 miles an hour, completely blind. It is a literal, terrifying descent into madness, which culminates in the capsule violently crashing into a remote jungle lake on the island of New Guinea.
They emerge from the sinking capsule right into the middle of a literal cargo cult. They are immediately surrounded by thousands of indigenous natives wielding spears and wearing grass skirts, a society that has built its religion around waiting for gods to drop technological presence from the sky.
And just when you think the satire cannot possibly get any stranger, Groom introduces Big Sam. The crew is captured and brought before the leader of this tribe. Big Sam is a massive, intimidating native warrior with a bone pierced through his nose.
Right.
He looks at the astronauts and, in perfect, crisp, upper crust English, says, "What a jolly fine show, I say. I went to Yale, old sport. Bula bula."
It is the most jarring paradox in the book. Big Sam explains that he was recruited by the American OSS during World War II to fight the Japanese in the Pacific Theater, and the military simply abandoned him in the jungle when the war ended.
Unbelievable.
He fully assimilated into the local cannibalistic culture, rising to become their king, but he has retained the elitist arrogance, the vocabulary, and the sheer capitalistic ambition of an Ivy League graduate.
Groom is holding a mirror up to elite education here. Big Sam politely informs them that his people originally intended to boil them alive and eat them, but his Yale education has given him a better idea.
He forces the NASA astronaut, the math savant, and the orangutan to clear the jungle and plant acres and acres of cotton, with the grand vision of elevating his cannibal tribe into the global textile marketplace.
It is a staggering historical inversion. Groom has taken a white American from the Deep South and forced him into brutal agricultural slavery in a foreign jungle, overseen by a highly educated minority leader.
Meanwhile, the rigid military discipline of Major Fritsch completely dissolves. She becomes infatuated with a massive native warrior named Gurk, moves into his mud hut, and totally abandons her mission parameters.
Leaving Forrest and Sue the ape to toil in the cotton fields all day. But the true psychological warfare happens at night. Big Sam forces Forrest to sit down and play endless games of chess. Sam taught Forrest the rules, naturally assuming that his superior Yale intellect would easily dominate the slow-witted Southerner.
But he fundamentally misunderstands Forrest's brain. Forrest's savant processor maps the spatial logic and the mathematical probabilities of the chessboard perfectly. He effortlessly and continually beats the Yale-educated cannibal.
The tension Groom builds in these chess games is unbearable. Big Sam's Ivy League ego cannot handle the defeat. He becomes increasingly furious and erotic. Forrest realizes with absolute certainty that Big Sam is still a cannibal at heart, and the very moment Sam finally manages to win a single game of chess, he's going to throw Forrest into the cauldron and eat him.
It transforms from a parlor game into a high-stakes, life-or-death battle of intellect spanning months. Groom places the pinnacle of Western elite ambition, the Yale graduate, inside a cannibalistic society to argue a profound point. Civilized elite ambition is, at its absolute core, just a polite, well-dressed form of cannibalism. They will consume you the moment you are no longer useful.
The climax of this entire jungle saga hinges on a single catastrophic mistake. The tribe has spent months building a massive wooden barge to transport their cotton harvest. They're holding a massive, frenzied celebration.
The tribal fires are burning, the giant cannibal cauldron is literally boiling water, and Forrest is staring down at the chessboard. He realizes, with creeping horror, that his processor has failed him.
He made a fatal error 3 moves ago. Big Sam has him trapped in an inescapable checkmate.
The Yale cannibal smiles, baring his teeth, ready to claim his prize. Forrest's mind races. He cannot outthink the board. So what does he do?
He deploys his ultimate, undefeated, get-out-of-jail-free card. He looks Big Sam dead in the eye, points to his groin, and says, "I gotta pee." And, incredibly, for the first time in his entire life, uttering that phrase actually saves him.
It buys him exactly 30 seconds of confusion. He slips away from the board, frantically grabs Sue the ape, drags Major Fritsch out of her hut, and they sprint for a canoe to escape down the river. But Big Sam recovers quickly. He and his warriors intercept them at the riverbank.
They are violently stripped, tied to heavy wooden stakes, and physically hoisted into the air over the boiling cauldron. Big Sam is standing below them, casually debating which part of Major Fritsch he wants to eat first, mentioning he might prefer a thigh. They are quite literally seconds away from being boiled alive.
But then, in a massive explosion of violence, a hail of poison arrows rains down from the jungle canopy. It is a surprise attack by the Pygmies, a neighboring tribe of ancient headhunting rivals. Complete chaos erupts in the village.
Forrest, Fritch, and Sue manage to break their bonds and scramble into the jungle to escape the slaughter. But in their panic, they step directly into hidden snares. Ropes snap tight around their ankles, yanking them violently upside down into the trees, where they dangle helplessly like bats, while the pygmies entirely decimate Big Sam's tribe below them.
The pygmies secure the village, cut the astronauts down from the trees, hog-tie them like livestock, and prepare to carry them off into the deep jungle. Forrest looks over and sees that Big Sam has also been captured.
The pygmies are hauling the Yale-educated cannibal toward his own boiling pot. And as Big Sam is about to be thrown to his death, his final screaming words to Forrest aren't a plea for help.
No! He shouts out the chess moves. He screams, Knight to Bishop 3, then Rook 10 to King 7. That's how I beat you. And then there is a massive splash, and Big Sam is gone forever.
Forrest is hoisted onto the shoulders of the pygmies, being carried off to face their king, desperately hoping that his ability to play the harmonica might save his life one final time.
And that breathless, chaotic cliffhanger is where our specific slice of the source material concludes for today. It is an exhausting, relentless, deeply cynical, and infinitely bizarre journey. But if we synthesize everything we've unpacked here, the true brilliance of Winston Groom's work becomes clear. The Forrest Gump of the novel is not merely a sweet, innocent observer of history.
He is a human Rorschach test.
Precisely. Every single American institution he touches, Southern academia, the military-industrial complex, the presidency, the counterculture, and the highest scientific establishment projects its own specific greed, absurdity, and hypocrisy onto his blank slate. And Forrest, simply by operating on literal truth and basic human logic, accidentally destroys every single one of them.
It's a profound realization, because if you are listening to this right now, chances are you have, at some point in your life, felt trapped in a system governed by absurd, incomprehensible rules. Whether it's a soul-crushing corporate job, trying to navigate a medical bureaucracy, or just trying to make sense of the daily news cycle, the world often feels like it's run by people who are proudly cooking stew in a steam boiler.
And Forrest's methodology for survival in that world is incredibly resonant. He doesn't try to outsmart the madness. He relies on pure, unfiltered honesty. He focuses on simple, tangible desires, like his dream of the shrimp farm. He plays his harmonica, he tries to protect the people he cares about, and he just tries to do the right thing, regardless of the institutional consequences.
Which brings us to a really provocative final thought to leave you with. Think back to the letter that Lieutenant Dan wrote to Forrest before Dan was shipped back to America from the hospital ward in Vietnam. Dan wrote that Forrest isn't an idiot at all, no matter what his IQ score says.
Dan wrote that deep down, beneath the scrambled communication, there is a glowing sparkle of curiosity burning deep in your mind, a genesis of our ability as humans to think, to create, to be. Dan saw past the broken keyboard. He recognized the sheer power and purity of the processor.
He saw that Forrest was the only one calculating the truth. So it leaves you to ponder. In a society that routinely creates unsteerable wars, builds massive bureaucratic mazes, sends apes into space out of sheer stubbornness, and values political optics over human lives, is conventional intelligence actually a flaw?
Is the ability of normal people to rationalize the absurd exactly what is making our society crazy? And is Forrest's curious, literal, utterly uncorrupted mind actually the only true sanity we have left?
It makes you wonder. Because when you finally step off the paved path, dig through the dirt, and look at the unpolished, messy, deeply scuffed-up reality behind the postcard, sometimes the guy pointing out that the emperor has no clothes is the only one making any sense at all. Even if he only says it because he really has to pee.